It doesn't matter what time of year it is. Doesn't matter how cold the room gets. Doesn't even matter if it's pointing at you. The fan has to be on. You've probably tried sleeping without it. Maybe once when the power went out. Maybe at a hotel. Maybe at someone else's house. And you lay there in the silence, staring at the ceiling, completely unable to sleep. Not because you were cold, not because you needed the breeze, because something was missing. Something you couldn't quite name. Most people who sleep with a fan will tell you it's just habit, or white noise, or temperature. And they're not wrong, but they're only seeing the surface. The psychology underneath this specific habit is far more layered than anyone expects. And once you understand it, you'll never think of your fan the same way again.
Welcome back. Psychology of Men. That's what we do here. Subscribe if you're new. Let's get into it. Here's something most people don't know about the sleeping brain. Even in deep sleep, your brain is still actively monitoring your environment. It's scanning for threats, for sudden sounds, for anything that signals danger. This is an ancient survival system that hasn't changed in hundreds of thousands of years. And in complete silence, that system becomes hypersensitive. Every creak of the house, every car outside, every small sound that breaks the quiet becomes a potential signal worth investigating. Your brain jolts slightly, assesses the sound, decides if it's dangerous, then tries to settle back down.
This happens dozens of times a night without you ever fully waking up. And each microjolt costs you something. Deep sleep, recovery, rest. The fan changes everything. White noise, which is exactly what a fan produces, creates a consistent audio baseline, a steady layer of sound that sits underneath everything else. And when a new sound occurs, a creak, a car, a voice, it doesn't spike above silence. It spikes above the fan. The contrast is smaller. The brain's threat detection system barely registers it. You stay deeper, longer. Researchers at the National Sleep Foundation found that consistent ambient sound significantly reduces nighttime arousals, the micro-wakings that fragment sleep without you realizing it. The fan isn't just comfort. It's neurological sleep architecture.
Here's what the research consistently shows about men who cannot sleep without background noise. They tend to have higher baseline anxiety than they consciously recognize. Not clinical anxiety, not panic attacks, just a low-level hum of vigilance that never fully switches off. The kind that makes you check the door is locked twice, that runs through tomorrow's problems while you're trying to sleep, that never quite lets you fully relax. For these men, silence doesn't feel peaceful. Silence feels exposed. The fan creates what psychologists call a controlled sensory environment. It fills the space. It creates a boundary between you and whatever is outside the room. It gives the vigilant brain something consistent to rest against, so it can finally stop scanning. In other words, the fan isn't just helping you sleep. It's giving your nervous system permission to stand down.
There's a deeper layer to this that almost nobody talks about. Sleep is one of the most vulnerable states a human being can enter. You are completely unconscious, completely unaware, completely unable to respond to anything. For men, who are often carrying a background sense of responsibility, alertness, and readiness, surrendering to that vulnerability is genuinely difficult. Rituals solve this. A ritual before sleep, the fan being part of it, signals to the brain that the transition is safe, that the conditions are right, that it is now acceptable to let go. The fan is not just sound. It's a cue, a signal, a trigger that says, this is the environment where sleep is allowed to happen. Remove it, and the cue disappears. The brain doesn't receive the signal, and sleep, which requires a degree of surrender that doesn't come easily to vigilant men, simply doesn't come. Psychologists who study sleep rituals describe this as conditioned sleep onset, where the brain has associated specific environmental cues with the physiological process of falling asleep. The fan isn't a crutch, it's a key, and it was built over years of the brain learning exactly what safe feels like.
Here, is the paradox. The men most dependent on the fan to sleep are often the most independent people you will meet when they are awake. They handle everything. They ask for nothing. They function under pressure without complaint. But take away the fan, and they cannot sleep, because the fan is the one thing they never had to be strong about. It's the one corner of their life where the nervous system gets to be honest, where vigilance is allowed to rest, where the background hum of readiness finally gets to stop. The fan isn't a weakness. It's the only place a quietly vigilant man ever fully lets his guard down. And that, for men who rarely do, is everything.
So the next time someone tells you the fan habit is strange or tries to turn it off on you, you can tell them exactly what's happening. Your brain is protecting your sleep from micro-interruptions you'd never consciously notice. Your nervous system is using a conditioned cue to grant itself permission to rest. And some quiet part of you that carries more than it ever says is finally getting to put it down for a few hours. Let it. Drop a comment. Fan on or fan off? And have you ever tried to sleep without it? I read every single one. See you in the next one.